Good afternoon everyone and welcome to yet another webinar. This is CorelDRAW Templates Made Easy, brought to you by Deco Network and Ryonet. And of course, to find out more about Deco Network, simply head over to deconetwork.com. We can find all the information about our online designer and business software for the decoration industry, including of course the Online Designer, our e-commerce platform, the thousands of catalog products we have built into the Deco Network platform, stock designs, and of course not to forget our Business Hub software, where you manage your quotes, orders and invoices and production for your embroidery and printing business. And of course, for more information on Ryonet, head over to silkscreeningsupplies.com, where you can find all their information from the printing kits, equipment, supplies, software, and of course education, which is exactly what we're doing here today with our CorelDRAW webinar and class. So we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of our presentation. So my name is Brendan Prasner. I'm Product Manager and Evangelist here at Deco Network, and I'm joined today by TJ Stepper, the Operations Education Manager at Ryonet. Good morning, afternoon, TJ.
Good morning, Brendan.
Alrighty, let's jump straight into it. Okay, so in today's webinar, what we're looking at is creating a CorelDRAW template in creating a template in CorelDRAW, and TJ will go through the process and show you just how you do that. Then we'll look at uploading and personalizing that template online, loading it up on your Deco Network website and showing how your customers can personalize that template with their own text and information. Then we'll look at creating a color separation. TJ will load that template back into CorelDRAW, create a color separation ready for your silk screening, and then of course we'll finish off with showing you where you can learn more of CorelDRAW training and great other webinars and seminars that Ryonet have to offer as well. So what I'll do, I'll hand over to TJ, and she'll begin by walking us through the process of building a template in CorelDRAW. Take it away, TJ.
Great. Thank you, Brendan. So we're in CorelDRAW, and when it comes to creating templates and things like that, most people don't draw their own templates. A lot of stuff is done through clip art, through various pieces of art that you've gotten from customers or have found out there, in cyberspace, or even, purchase some clip art yourself. So I'm going to go through creating a template today using some clip art. This clip art that I have on my screen here is from the Reviation Industries. They do some fabulous clip art. You can find that on our website as well. And we're going to take these three pieces and we're going to make a template for the Spartans. And obviously we have a Spartan head. That's where we're going to start. But I'm going to go through how we not only set up a template and make it all work together, but how to most effectively do that, knowing you're going to take this into Deco Network. So I have three pieces for my Spartan here, the design that I'm going to work with. The key for me is to make sure that as I'm designing, I'm keeping each section its own. So I've got my sword, I've got my Spartan head, and I've got the background. The key to any good design is to have a background and then have a focal point up front. So that's what we're going to do when we start putting together this particular design. But before we get to that, we need to make sure that before we start compiling all of this stuff, that everything is set up correctly for what we need it to be. As screen printers, when we're looking towards the end of the design, we know that we are going to be separating this and have to have it on separate films, moving it, into these so we can have different screens. And we want to have nice black film positives. So we have to color in the Pantone Solid Coated book. And that's the book that you see over here on the right of my Corel. Now I do have this Pantone Solid, and I keep it on the side there for me to work with, because not only do those colors give me 100% of color, which is what I want for these nice solid film positives, but they also, our ink manufacturers use that book so that you can replicate any ink, any of those colors with any of their inks. So not only are we getting what we need film-wise, but we're able to replicate those colors with our ink. So the first thing I want to do is make sure that each of my individuals that I'm going to be using are ready for me to use. So I've got this particular image right here. This is going to be for my background image. And I'm going to keep it black because that's I want it to be muted and more into the background. And as you can see in the lower right corner here, it is already a Pantone color. I've chosen Hexachrome Black. So now when I get to working with the other parts of my designs, I have to make sure that everything I'm doing that's black is also hexachrome black. That's key so that it all shows up on the same film. That's what I needed to do. So the next thing that I'm going to work with is the sword that I have here. Now, the first thing I want to do is click on the interior, and I want to give this, I know I'm going to go on a colored shirt, so I want to give this a little more than just a CMYK white. Corel sees CMYK white as the background, so as far as the program's concerned when it does separations, it's only seeing black. But I'm going to go ahead and come over to my Pantone bar, and I'm going to color the interior of that Pantone yellow. So I've got my Pantone yellow. If I come in a little closer and I click actually on the black, we'll get in there, we can see that it's a hexachrome black. So that's perfect. That's exactly what I need color-wise. But I'm not just going to use this particular sword completely standing up in my design. I need to give my design a little more pop. So I'm going to bring it over here off the workspace. I'm going to grab the entire thing and bring it over here off the workspace. So we'll group that and bring it over. So the first thing I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to tilt it and give it, a little bit of a degree there. Now I want to duplicate that because I want to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to hit the plus key and I'm going to make an exact duplicate of what I just did. I've got my duplicate there, so now I can click on it and see that I have an exact duplicate. And I'm going to twist that one the other way. And I'm going to line these two up just like so. Now that's the second element of what I'm going to do. I'm going to have my background element, we're going to put my swords in front of it, then we're going to put the Spartan head. But because I have two different elements here, when I take these into Deco Network to allow the customer to be able to make any changes or not make changes, which you have those options in Deco Network, I want to make this one entire unit. So I'm going to grab those together and I'm going to group them. Now I've got the second element of my template. And we're just going to put this right back over here. The next element of my template is going to be my Spartan head. So this is one that I want to work with and I want to give it a little bit of color. So the first thing I'm going to do is find those areas that I want to color. So Spartans are traditionally, at least at the University of South Carolina, they're red and gold. So my swords are gold and I want to add some red to this particular design. So I'm going to again go back to my Pantone palette and I'm going to pick the 032 red. I'm going to make that, and I want to give the accents in the helmet some red as well. So I'm going to fill those accents with red. Now the helmet itself, I want to give it some color as well, but I don't want to add too many colors because then I'm going to end up having more and more screens. So I want to be able to actually use a color that's going to allow me to have a separate color but only use one screen. And that's when I start getting into the use of halftones. So for the helmet, I know that hexachrome black is the color that I'm going to be using for the Spartan itself. Right now when I click on it, you can see it's CMYK. So I need to go ahead and change that to hexachrome black. So now I've got my hexachrome black here. When we click over here onto our black, we see we've got the hexachrome black. I want to take the interior of this helmet and I want to actually make it a gray. And I'm going to do that by just taking a percentage of that actual hexachrome black. So let's say 30%. So I get a nice gray helmet. I'm still only using one screen because I'm using a percentage of my black, so it's still going to show up on my black screen. Now my outline was black, so I want to make sure that as I come in here and I look at some of these other parts to the Spartan head that everything is colored correctly, because there's nothing worse when you get it back to go to film to have different blacks or anything like that going on within the image. So I'm going to click around on some of these that don't necessarily touch, but it looks like everybody's the right color. So now that I have my Spartan all set up, what I want to do is select all of him and group him together as well. So now I have three very distinct elements to what I'm going to be doing for that particular template that I'm going to create to take into Deco Network, take into my store there so that people can come in and purchase it. So the next thing I need to do, as my Corel re-renders itself there, the next thing I need to do is start to compile this to make an image that's going to work for my template. So I'm going to take these three image elements here, and I'm just going to slide them off to the side here, because I'm going to go to the next page, and we're going to talk about compiling. When you're working in CorelDRAW, my personal opinion is that it's very important when you're designing or compiling, and layering different elements to make a template, that you do so on a comp. I have a t-shirt comp here. There are sweatshirts available, there are tank tops available, there's all kinds of comps available, but it's really important when you're designing to design on one of these t-shirt comps, because what it does is it allows you to take into account the collar or even how the sleeves come into the design, because no person is a flat 12 by 12 inch white box. So we want to actually account for the fact that they're going to be a person, and that you've got some movement in the t-shirt itself. And again, this is still, it's a vectored t-shirt. There are more realistic ones if you really want to get into how close that is. But for me, I'm mostly concerned about the collar and the width of the design that I'm going to be working with. And I want to not only design on the comp for the composition of the design, but it will also allow me to have an instant proof to my customer or to other designers to say, do you think this is a good one to go with? So now that my comp's in place, I'm going to go ahead and in Corel, I'm going to lock my comp. And that just means that I've locked this t-shirt to the workspace. So if I accidentally move something over it as I start to layer these images, then I don't end up moving my t-shirt. You see, when I try to draw anything, the t-shirt stays exactly where it's supposed to be, which is what I want it to do. So the first thing I want to do is take my background element, and right now I'm not worried about size. I'm not trying to make my images 12 by 12 or 10 by 10, because I'm going to do that when I get ready to separate. Right now I'm worried more about composition. So I'm going to put my first element on the shirt and kind of get it where I want it to go. And then I'm going to bring in each element separately so that I can bring it in and set it in where I need it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and put the swords in, and then we'll bring in the Spartan head as well. We'll shrink that down a little bit and bring it over onto our design. So wait for that to render up. So as we come in and we take a look at this design, we've got these layered, and my Spartan head's probably a little big. I don't want it to overwhelm my swords in my background. They are an important part to the template. So we'll get it in, and I'll get it set. I don't know where I want it to be. Now, just through 2 or 3 really quick clicks, I've created, an intricate design. It looks like a lot of work's gone into it. I've taken 3 pieces of clip art and I've layered them together. But I'm not done yet. And the important part, this is going to be another example of why working on a t-shirt is so important. Because now I need to tell you what it is. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to type in 2013. Let's go ahead and give that kind of a fun text. Let's see here, nostalgic is a good one. And we're going to put that right down here. So we've got 2013, and now I need to add Spartans to it. So I'm going to go ahead and type in Spartans. And, I want to stay with the same font because I want, my image to be congruent. So let's go ahead and bring this up, make it a little bit bigger. And I want to give it some visual appeal. It's kind of boring when it's in a straight line, so I want to give it a little bit of oomph. So I'm going to go ahead and envelope that particular design. So here we go. We'll envelope it. I'm going to add a new envelope, and pardon my computer being a little slow on the rendering there. And so let's go ahead and pull this up a little bit here and here, and kind of get a little bit of a different look here. So now I've kind of almost put it into what would be like sort of a ribbon. So now that I've given the Spartans its own look, I can bring it over to add it to my design, and when I bring it in to put it on top of my design, we can see that designing on the t-shirt is really important, because if I was in a 12 by 12 inch box and I created this design here and I went to t-shirts and I had to, as is, if I had to bring it down, I'm going to end up putting the Spartan almost, potentially on the belly of the t-shirt. So designing on a comp is really hugely important. I can't stress that enough, so that my composition for my design can work well. The other advantage to the comp, another little tip I want to throw out there, is that in Corel we have the option to have some very unique color palettes. And in those color palettes are color palettes for things such as Gildan or Hanes t-shirts. These are the two I use the most, so I have them already loaded into my software. And it comes up as a solid spot color palette over here on my right-hand side. And the advantage for that is that I can give my customer a more realistic representation. As far as a Deco Network user would go, it allows me to decide if I want to restrict what colors of garment the customer can choose for this particular design. Because as we all know, not every design aesthetic goes with every color that's out there. So if I unlock the shirt and we select this here, and we can see that I have the shirt color selected, and it happens to be red from the Gildan palette. Now, as you can see, it's not as striking of a red as the red in the Spartans, but that's because garment colors aren't always as brilliant as maybe our CMYK palette is, or things like that. They try to stay more realistic to the color of the actual dyes in the garment. So with the Gildan palette, I can then begin to explore changing the shirt color, and I can do this with my customer right there to help them choose the appropriate color, or if I have certain colors that I think this design will go best with, I can then scroll through those colors on these particular shirts and then limit them to the colors that are available for this design in my Deco Network store. So that's really, it's not any harder than that. It really is that easy to take some clip art, make sure you're coloring it with the Pantone solid coated book, do it on a comp for sure, and you can easily make templates just using a couple of quick tools, such as the text tool and the envelope tool. It's going to allow me to give it some visual appeal, and now this template is ready to go. It's ready to go right back over to Brendan and right into Deco Network. It's all you, Brendan.
Alrighty, thanks TJ. Let me just switch back to my screen and I'll bring up my CorelDRAW. Okay, so thanks TJ for that. Some great tips, and we'll also share some of the links to those Gildan and Hanes color palettes in the confirmation email once this webinar is finished as well, so you can go download those for your CorelDRAW software as well. Now I'm just going to quickly open up that design that TJ created, this Spartans design. I've of course got an earlier copy that TJ made for me, and just want to explain some of the key highlights of this design, which is definitely important for your CorelDRAW experience in Deco Network. And of course, as TJ touched on as she was creating that inside her software. Now, the most important part with Deco Network is to always consider the consumer. Consider that the consumer is not a graphic designer. They may not and probably won't have CorelDRAW installed on the computer. And that's a great thing about having Deco Network is we have CorelDRAW running in the cloud, so they don't need it to modify those Corel templates on your website. But you've got to consider what a consumer might want to do with that template. And as TJ did during the creation process, make some deliberate decisions when compiling or composing your template. So in this case, TJ made a single head which can be swapped out on Deco Network. So if they like the background, but perhaps they're a Bulldogs fan, they can swap out the Spartans head and replace it with a Bulldog. Maybe they're not so much of a swords fan and they prefer it to be a baseball. They can then swap out that sword and replace it with a baseball or get rid of the background. So by grouping your elements, these individual groupings of elements will be available in Deco Network for your customer to swap out and replace. The next important thing to remember is, of course, your text. Now, font is the most important part when you're graphically creating any the template or design for the web, because you have to ensure that the fonts are available in Deco Network. And due to licensing reasons, we can't just make any font available in our online server environment. So we have well and truly over 1,000 fonts for you to use in Deco Network, and those links are available in the backend of Deco Network to download those fonts and install those. So make sure you use one of our supported fonts. And secondly, when you're creating a template, you also want to make sure that you have your text centered, for example, because if it was left justified, like I just changed this 2013, and your customer perhaps didn't use a year, but maybe they put their name, it will suddenly be off-center. It will look odd for that template. So if you do make it that it is center justified, and I'll just change it back to being center justified, then when your customer replaces that on the web, it'll be nice and balanced. So that's another conscious design choice that you have to make as a part of building your template. The third and final most important element is to keep your text as text. Don't convert it to curves. If you do convert that to curves, then it won't be editable in Deco Network. It'll just be another shape, random shapes that happen to look like text. Now you can use that as a deliberate design process or decision. So if you are making this template for a Spartans local baseball or soccer club, for example, maybe part of their conditions are that the users can't change that Spartans text. It must always remain Spartans, but they can change, Brendan is a #1 fan, but leave that. So when you want to do that, you simply convert that text to curves by going up to Arrange and Convert to Curves. But in my case, I want to keep everything as is, just as TJ created, so I'll undo all that, and I'll close it down and won't save that away. So I've got the original template that TJ created. And now I'm going to flip over to my Deco Network website and show you exactly where you upload that to your website and then make that editable for your clients to use on your front-end store. So I'm going to browse over to my stock designs. I'm already logged into my website, so I'm logged in as the owner and manager of my site. I click on stock designs. And earlier I created a category called Ryonet, so I'm going to place it in that so I can easily find it under my templates category and Ryonet. You of course can make whatever template folders or stock design folders that you want, maybe sports, maybe wildlife, maybe adventure. It's completely up to you. I'm just going to place it in this folder so I can find it easily on my site. And up the top right, I'm going to click on Add Your Own Design. I'll then choose that file, grab that original Spartan CDR file. You don't need to convert it to a PNG. You don't need to destroy it and output it to an EPS or a PDF or an SVG. Keep it as the original CorelDRAW CDR. Because again, in Deco Network, we've embedded CorelDRAW as a part of our solution. I'll call it Spartans. And most important of all, if I want this to be a editable template, then I check this option, Split into Template, and then press Upload. Now, of course, it all depends on how big the file is and how fast your internet connection is. But at that point, we then upload that design. And that's when we perform a little bit of magic in the background. Now, the great thing about the way we've implemented our CorelDRAW integration into Deco Network is you don't have to go through and do anything special to that CorelDRAW file. You don't need to tag objects to say, make this editable. You don't need to tag this to say, allow them to change that text. We go through and inspect that CorelDRAW file and say, well, here's one group of objects, just happen to look like a head, we'll make that editable. Here's another group of objects, it's a sword background. Here's the large background, and we picked up 2 text objects. And we automatically extract each one of those and make each of them editable in your software. In addition to that, we also detect whether it's got a lot of colors or low colors. So in this case, it's a low color design. It's only got 5 or so colors in the design compared to a full color DTG that could have thousands or millions of colors. So based on that, we've automatically detected that that design can be used for DTG, sublimation, or screen printing. If you don't agree with that, you can uncheck that auto assign and assign it to whatever decoration process you want that design to be made available for. And of course, you can give it a name, apply any additional meta tags or description to that to make it easy to find on your website. But I'll just press apply, and that design is now available on my front end site. So now I'm going to click over to my Firefox browser, and I'm now going to browse my front-end website as a consumer. And you can do this yourself. It's just demo.deconetwork.com. That's our public demonstration website. You're more than welcome to go there and have a play with all the tools and functions of Deco Network. Now I'm going to start off with from a template. So I will look for the RioNet category. There it is. And of course I've only got one design in that category, and I'll just select that. We then go through and we automatically preview that design on all the products on your website. So you don't need to go through and make each one of those thumbnails and designs one by one. We just do that for you because maybe your customer wants to put it on a mug, or maybe they want it on a beanie or a hat or a hoodie or a tote or iPhone case, whatever it might be. In this case, I want to preview it on a plain old t-shirt, so I'll choose the heavy cotton, which is a Gildan shirt. And then, like I mentioned before, it automatically extracts all those editable components in the online designer. Now this is what we call the personalization mode of Deco Network. It's not the full online designer, but it gives a nice easy way for your consumer just to see the design. They can't accidentally drag and destroy all the great work that the designer did to build this template. It's maintained that layout, but it's exposed the elements that can be editable. So again, I can replace or remove the head if I don't want that, or the sword, or the background. But in this case, I'm happy with it. I like the Spartans. I just want to change it to my team's name and a date that I want. So first of all, Spartans, I want to change that to Deco Network. So I'll swap that out to Deco Network, and I can press Apply or just Tab. And what this does, it sends that information from my website off to CorelDRAW running on the cloud in the Deco Network environment and updates that original CorelDRAW CDR and then sends back the preview. So again, the consumer does not need CorelDRAW. They don't need any special software. It's all using the draw on the web in Deco Network. And swap that out to 2014 and tab or apply, and it'll make that change as well. So your consumer's free to go make whatever changes that they want, and only if you allow them can they go into the full customized mode and change the layout of that template. So I'll just click on that in the background and let that load, and that's when it loads our full online designer. Now the online designer is non-flash based, so they can even do this on their iPhone as well. And at that point, if they want, and if you allow them, they can say, well, you know, I really want that to be down the bottom, and I'm going to ignore those great rules that TJ just told us about template design, and I'm going to make it lower and bigger, and they can do whatever they want, because they're free to do that in the online designer. But you can disable that, so they only get that first personalized mode, and they get a really nice, easy way to customize that template and purchase it on the front end of your site. Now, of course, the most important part is what happens once they purchase that template. Well, I'll go back to my Chrome browser, and I am logged in, and I placed an earlier order with a previous template that TJ provided. And if I click over to my Business Hub, and on my production view, I can see all the orders that have come in from my demo website. Some designs that customers have made. Maybe you've recognized one that you made yourself when you're just playing around on a front-end site. And of course, here's that earlier Spartans design that I personalized on the site. And if I view that production order, on the back end, then I can go through and download either the production ready file. In this case, I purchased it for DTG. It could even be for screen printing. And you can choose it to be an original CDR file, or also convert it to a flat PNG. So because we are powered by CorelDRAW, you can choose what your production file output will be. In the case of sublimation, maybe you don't want a CorelDRAW CDR. Maybe you want a PDF or a PNG file. But let's say, for example, the customer accidentally made a spelling error and they called Deco Network instead of Deco Network. Well, if it's a flat bitmap, that's pretty useless. So what you can also specify in Deco Network is make my production file a bitmap because that's what my machine prefers, but keep the editable file as a CorelDRAW file. So if I ever need to download that, then I can bring that back into my CorelDRAW software. I can open that, and it is that exact original CorelDRAW editable file, exactly as TJ created, exactly as I personalized it, ready on the web, including the colors, the fonts. Everything is completely editable. So if they did make a spelling error, and they really did mean 2013, I can fix that for them. And I don't have to go back to the customer saying, can you please go online? Can you please purchase that again? It's all editable, all thanks to the power of Vector and, of course, CorelDRAW. So really simple, again, as long as you follow those key principles. Keep your text as text. Group your elements that you want your customer to be able to swap out. If you don't group them and leave millions of objects, we will detect that and we will group it all as one large big group. So make a conscious choice or decision what you think your customer wants to swap out and group those as objects. And of course use Deco Network fonts, keep them as text, and they'll be ready to go editable file. At that point, because it is complete vector and in Deco Network, you of course can do your color separation and get it ready for your screens and your press. So I'll pass back to TJ and she'll walk us through the process of making a color separation out of this design. So back to you, TJ.
Thank you, Brennan. So like Brennan said, once you're done in Deco Network, then you're going to come back to your Corel Draw. And in doing so, now we have to get ready for film. So here I have the file that Brennan has created and with the personalization of Deco Network in 2014, and we need to get it ready for film. So the first thing I do when I'm working, as I'm getting ready for film, is I want to make sure that my workspace and how I'm going to size up my film are all accurate to what I need to do. So I'm going to change my workspace to 13 by 18, which I've already done, and this is the size film that I'm going to be printing out of. I'm going to print out of an Epson 1430, and it takes a 13 by 19 maximum. So I'm going to use 13 by 18 to make sure that I have my film as I would see it coming out so I can size up my image correctly. So when we were designing originally on our t-shirt, then we didn't worry about size. Our image was 5 inches by 6 inches. It fit on our t-shirt. We made sure that it was set up so that the composition worked with actually being on a garment and ready to go. So now I'm ready to be able to take this to a size that's going to work for film output. And this is a standard breakdown for anywhere from a large to an extra large is a 12-inch box, and you're going to max at about 10 inches on a small, and that's putting really big on a small. I'm actually going to split the difference and make this 10.5 inches wide. So I'm going to let the program make it to the size I need it to be. I'm going to center it on my film so that when I get ready to do my film output, everything's ready to go. So now I know that this is what I want to do and how I'm going to go about. Those are the colors I'm looking for. I'm looking for a black, a yellow, and a red, and a white. The face is white. If I'm going to go on to, a color garment or something like that, I may want to have the face, be white as I go forward and do that. So now I'm ready to print. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to hit print and bring up my print preview. Now my first choice is to make sure under the General tab that I choose the appropriate printer. And since I did consciously make a decision to get multiple colors out of one screen by using my halftones, I have to use the appropriate printer to print those halftones. Now the Epson printers, as great as they are, do not have a built-in PostScript. Very few printers these days do. So I have to use the Accurate program. The Accurate is going to allow me to get those halftones. It's going to create them for me so that I can actually put 2 colors on one screen. And as you can see from my small little preview here, I actually have 2 colors. And you can tell by the solid black that I have here and the name and all of the line work. That's going to be 100% of this hexachrome black. To the shading, the gray shading you see in here, that's going to give us that lighter gray color inside the helmet. That's that 40% or 30% of black that we chose for the interior. So once I have my printer chosen, Corel automatically breaks it out into the appropriate separations. So we see there's my black, my yellow, my red, and my white. So those are the 4 separations that I need. I know those are the colors that I'm looking for. I can go ahead and print, but I'm not quite ready just yet. I want to make sure that when I get my registration marks so that all of my films line up to each other, so that all of my screens can line up to each other. In Corel, you have 4 options for registration marks. You have these 3, which are great if you're doing paper printing or some sort of lithography or something like that. They're going to put it into the upper corner the page. You'll see those pop up over here in the corners. Not just yet because they're not on the page, and I'm sure that's what this issue tells me. Or I can go with the single one. As a screen printer, I'm always going to choose the single registration mark because instead of being up in the corners, it's going to center top and bottom and side to side. Now, why is this important? This is important because when I go to press, I'm going to draw a black line right down the center of my palette. So then I can take these 2 registration marks, put them on the black line, and my black screen is instantly centered. I don't have to get out a T-square. I don't have to decide, am I in the center of the palette or am I level? My registration marks make that almost an instantaneous setup for my registration screen. So that's really important. The second piece of information, and often the most overlooked piece of information, is the file information. I'm always vigilant about making sure that there's file information on my films. And the reason is that that information, that little bit, just typing in a name, whether it's the order number for the job, whether it's the name of the job, the customer's name, doesn't matter. But there's some very, very key pieces of information that show up right there when we get ready to put this on our film. Now, obviously, our issue is that we're not getting our registration marks and our information on our film. So we're going to have to go over to our print preview. Now, to get those, a lot of times they're hiding. We're generally at the edge of the page. So we're going to come to the second tool up from the bottom, which is the Marks Placement tool. You can see it's got a little registration mark and a pick. So I'm going to pick on that, and I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to find this red box. Now, luckily on this design, I can see parts of it, so I know from the top and bottom where I'm going to be grabbing from. I'm going to have to go to all 4 sides, so as I move my mouse over and it becomes a double line, I can left click, and I want to drag this box onto the workspace. And I'm going to do this on all 4 sides, making sure that I bring these registration marks into the image area so that I have them right there where I need them. And we'll take this last one up here and get this all set up. So now my registration marks are on all 4 sides of my image, and they're centered here and here. And so is my file information. If we come in and we look at this file information, the reason I'm so vigilant about that is because films have a tendency in dark rooms to get placed in different locations as you're moving between exposing and washing out and doing all these other things. They tend to get separated and or can get lost. And if you're saving films and a customer comes back a year later, maybe a change was made and you're not aware. This is going to tell me the time and the date that it was made, so I know if it's the most current set of films that I need to be looking for. It also gives me 2 other pieces of very key information. How many colors are in this job? So if I find 3 films and it's a 4-color job, I don't just burn those 3 and then realize I'm missing a color altogether. I know I'm looking for 4 colors. And it tells me right on the film what color goes in that screen. So it's allowing me to not have to carry my films around or have a color proof with me when I get ready to set up. I can just look in my screen and see what color is meant to be there. So I have all of my separations all set up with my registration marks, and I'm ready to go. I can just close out of my print preview. I've got the appropriate printer chosen. There's no more issues to report. I've got everybody set up here, and now I can just hit print, and all 4 plates will go through my Accurate and off to my Epson and print out one right after the other, and I can move through and get each one of those set up. Now, if I know I'm going on a white shirt, as we see that I have a white image here, I can easily just come into my Separations tab and uncheck that white there. Now I've got a 3-color job, saving myself a piece of film. If I'm not going to use it, you know, why even waste the film? That stuff can get expensive after a while. I can just uncheck it there. Now, if you are a Corel user and you do not like using those registration marks the program makes, that can be, you know, kind of a pain because they default to 0.5 line. You can see that here in the outline. It defaults. It's pretty small. And if you don't remember that they're out there, you could actually miss them. I'll show you really fast here before another quick tip in Corel. I'm going to go ahead and make my own registration marks so that I can see them and place them easily where I need them to be. So I'm going to grab my ellipse tool and hold the Control key. If you hold the Control key using any tool in Corel, you will constrain that particular tool. So Control key makes the ellipse a perfect circle. I'm going to go ahead and make it a 2-point line rather than 0.5, so it's something that I can see. And as we come in here and look at it a little closer, we can see it's a much heavier line. I'm going to take my 2-point line tool, draw a line here, and draw a line here. Now I don't have to be perfect when I'm drawing these lines because I'm going to actually make everybody that same 2 points, and then I'm going to align them to the circle by using my shortcut keys of C and E and making sure that these two are set up evenly. So you see how they move and set themselves up in the circle, so I have a nearly perfect target mark. And if you don't know where those alignment tools are, they're under alignment here. You can find all of the alignment tools. I happen to use C and E a lot. Those are two hotkeys that are very important to know. I'm going to go ahead and group those together, but they're only the color black, so they're going to make their own separation unless I change that. So a key thing when making your own registration marks is to make sure that in that outline tool, you're going over to your color selector and under models choosing registration color. Very important. That way these registration marks that we spend all this time creating, we're able to go and put on every separation that we've got. So now that I've got one, I'm actually going to take that and duplicate it a couple of times and set these three out here. And I'm going to duplicate it one more time. Control D is the duplicate key, or you can go edit and hit duplicate. And I'm going to take this last one down here. Now, the program, when it assigns registration marks, will assign them automatically. I'm going to group this Deco Network, my entire image together, make sure it's one piece. And now I'm going to use those alignment tools just like I did before. I'm going to take the three that I have on top and hit the E key and align them. Again, what we're looking for here, align them so that they're evenly. And then I want this set here along with this particular mark here. Sorry about that. This and my image, and I'm going to align those to the center. Of course, it aligned everybody up here to the center, which I should have grouped those beforehand, reiterating Brendan's option that everything should be grouped before you get moving on it. So you want to make sure that you do that. We'll Control Z out of this, and we'll go ahead and really quickly take these, group them, take them, holding the Shift key, I'm going to select the image and my last registration mark, hit the C key, and we should have, if we hit F4, a nice set of registration marks. Now it's just a matter of going back into print, taking out my registration marks under my prepress tab. I would still leave the file information and have that come onto the page so that I have that, but now you're ready to print and ready to go. And back to you, Brendan.
Alrighty, thanks TJ. Thanks everyone for your time on today's webinar. Now we do have the question panel if you do want to provide any additional questions or ask a quick question while we're here. We're happy to hang around and answer as much as we can on CorelDRAW, Deco Network, of course, what other any tips or tricks you need to know around the solution we've shown you today. I just quickly want to finish off though by showing you some couple of links to find more information about Deco Network, CorelDRAW, and of course RioNet. Let me just share out my screen. So of course you're probably interested in more CorelDRAW training. Well, you may not know that, and I believe TJ you can confirm that RioNet is in fact an official CorelDRAW trainer in North America, authorized?
Yes, in fact we are. We are the only company in North America sanctioned by Corel to teach their program. We do it in all of our locations. You can find our classes on our website. In fact, there is a Corel class currently running in our LA location at the moment. So we do it on a monthly basis, so you can come in and spend 2 days with us, and we'll teach you anything and everything there is to know about CorelDRAW.
Yep, and definitely a valuable and a worthwhile webinar. And it's a live session, isn't it, inside the class itself? So with a teacher in a training center.
Yes, actually, we do have an instructor. We have supplied the laptop with CorelDRAW, the latest version of CorelDRAW on it. You definitely get to ask the instructor one-on-one, bring in your own artwork. We can help you through some of your own designs or some of your own unique challenges in Corel, as well as teach you all of the tools and how to manage the program. So yes, it's 2 days. We supply lunch. We give you all the instruction. You come out being not having to purchase a graphic designer, I guess.
Yeah.
You can do all your own graphics.
Yeah, well, I mean, even if you do outsource your graphic design, it's critical that you have some at least basic skills in your office. If it's 9 p.m. at night, you need to get that job done, and there's a spelling error or there's something wrong with the color set, then just to be able to get in there, make those changes, it's like having your whole business really at ransom for someone else who you can maybe not get outside of business hours. So definitely valuable that you do get on and learn as much about CorelDRAW, and it is definitely the most intuitive vector software that I've used, and certainly in terms of doing screen print design, graphic design, and that's why we chose it as part of Deco Network. And of course, now with RyanNet, you get all the training you need on CorelDRAW, so definitely go check that out at silkscreeningsupplies.com and head straight to /CorelDRAW training. We'll get you directly to those training links, or of course just browse from their homepage, click on education, and there's a link to all the different training that they've got, from CorelDRAW to screen printing to business training. You name it, they've got it on there. And of course, for more information on Deco Network, just head over to our website at deconetwork.com. There's videos, there's a full 40-minute demonstration if you want to sit down and watch the whole demonstration, or request a live demonstration from one of our team who are also based out in California as well, in North America, in the UK, and of course here in Sydney, Australia. So I guess this formally ends the official webinar. We'll hang around and answer any of your questions. So TJ, thank you very much for your time, and look forward to the next webinar. Thank you.